Hey, everybody, what's up, and welcome back to Eggs, the podcast. It's me, Ryan, and Mike. We had a little bit of a scheduling snafu today, and so
let's be honest, I messed up.
Well, I was going to cover it up with a snafu, but if Mike wants to cop to it, that's fine. Anyway, we had a little scheduling miscommunication, and our guest couldn't make it. However, for people who don't know, which I guess might be everybody, Mike's going to be doing a little bit of traveling over the summer, as has happened in the last couple of years. And so he's going to be absent a little bit, so we didn't want to miss the opportunity to record. So anyway, hey, Mike, how are you?
I am doing good. How are things on your end?
Awesome. So super chaos on our end. We're in the heat of college recruiting season for my oldest son, who's trying to get a football scholarship. So we are running to and fro and emailing coaches and texting and tweeting and doing all the things. So, So anyway, so that's chaotic. So, but before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about just you and I were just talking just before we hit record on this, about this pool player that's coming to town and all this stuff. And, I don't know. I mean, I'm interested. I want to learn more about this stuff. So let's talk about that. Who's the guy?
His name is Efren Reyes. He's from the Philippines. He's essentially, the Michael Jordan of the Philippines. So like the beer sponsors and all the big sponsors actually sponsor pool players there instead of, basketball or whatever, because pool's pretty much the sport there.
Yeah, no. And well, what I was telling you was that, I don't follow pool closely. It brought up a good memory though, which is when I was a kid, or when I was young anyways. I remember we used to go to over at Idaho State. They had a little pool hall downstairs. And so you could go over and shoot pool in the evenings and stuff. So we would go over and do that on occasion. I was never very good, but I always liked it. And so that's cool. So this guy's coming through Pocatello, I think you said.
Yeah, he's it's weird. Of all the places, small Podunk, Pocatello, Idaho, he's going to be coming and doing an exhibition show. There's a pool hall here called Q's and Brews that they have a lot of cool tournaments. I play there pretty, like once or twice a week just to get out and shoot some pool. And I was there yesterday and found out he was coming through, and I followed him for, 20 years since I was in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to see he's coming through. I bought a ticket. It's $50 just to watch him play and get to see him. And I actually went ahead and bought a ticket because he's like that
awesome.
guy to me.
Well, yeah, no, like I was saying, I mean, the only reason I know who he is at all is because of Joe Rogan, who's, a big pool guy. So he's always talking about these dudes. And so when you said the name, it didn't click with me immediately. But as you started telling me who he was and everything, I can remember hearing about him. So it's crazy how like culturally different it is, because it's like, I remember when Manny Pacquiao was kind of the big deal coming out of the Philippines, and same thing. He was kind of, on this crazy level, like, there's like a level of fame that like we have a hard time wrapping our head around. And, with some of these guys, it's interesting because they're not as big here. I mean, Pacquiao was a big deal here too, but, a guy like this Reyes pool player, like you're saying, is kind of like a Michael Jordan type. But if we saw him walking down the street over here, we may not even give him his due, So it's kind of interesting how different it is around the world.
His nickname is the Magician because he's just known for making shots that no one should be able to make. Like, he'll line up on something and you won't even know what's about to happen, and then your mind just goes. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's a cool opportunity to be able to see him play.
Yeah, when I was in the Philippines, I was in a. They have these like tents with pool tables underneath them, so it's not even a building or whatever. But you'll be walking through the city and you'll come up on this, 6 or 7 pool tables. And they're everywhere. And so like you can just be walking around and come up on some really cool matches. They play this game called 61, which is, it's like a 12-ball rack, but you're playing like 9-ball. And the object is you go 1 through 12, and the first person to score 61 points wins. So the object of the game is to, you hit the 1 ball, but you can also like carry them off and sink the 10 or the 12. So if you get the 1 and the 12, you just got 13 points, and you keep track of your points, and the first person to 61 wins.
Well, that's
so
fun.
if I get a chance to play him, I'm going to ask him if he wants to play 61, just
Well,
because.
yeah, and that's what you're saying. As part of this tour or whatever, you can, I guess, pay a little extra or whatever, and have the opportunity to play with them. I was
Yeah,
joking that it'd be very short lived. You know, I mean, you
yeah,
get
it
about
would.
2 minutes with the guy, but
So
nonetheless, I mean, what a cool opportunity, you know, to be able to play with somebody like that. It's also
yeah,
cool too. I mean, if you've been following him this long, I mean, I guess pool is one of these sports. It's like the great chess guys. You know, you could play it all the way into old age, right? So, I mean,
yeah,
it's not like you have to try and stay fit like you do to play in the NBA or something. You know, to use the Michael
no.
Jordan reference. And so,
The
so these guys
guy I
can
was playing
play.
last night was in his
Yeah.
60s, so it's kind of
Oh,
fun
how
to
funny.
play with
Yeah,
those
it's
old
cool though,
guys.
but it's kind of, I don't know. You see so many people golfing and stuff like that. You know, there's like a few sports that you can play into older age, and you know, it's fun to be able to do something like that. And even though I'm not very good at it, you know, and I really don't get that much opportunity to play, yeah, I've always enjoyed playing pool. And like even just, you know, recently we were out in Nashville, and the house we were in had a pool table. And so, you know, me and the boys would just sit down there and shoot pool. You know, I mean, we don't know much, so we just do like stripes and solids or whatever, you know, that kind of stuff. But no, I mean, it's a fun thing to do. And I don't know, I always had a pretty good mind for geometry and stuff, so I felt like I could kind of, you know, place shots a little bit and stuff like that. Not very
It's also
skillfully, but I could, you know, kind of
it's one of
visualize
those
how something's going to bounce off a wall or something.
it's one of those games that you can never get. You can always get better, and that's why I like it so much. Is because you think you're good and you're doing really well, and then you realize that you can control where the cue ball goes, and then once you figure out how to do that, it messes up your shot, so you start missing a bunch, but you get the cue ball to go where you want, and then once you figure out how to do both, it really changes the game for you, where you can leave yourself shots for the next line up two or three shots in the head, and it it's a lot of fun for me. So
Yeah.
kind of
No,
my
it's really cool. Well, and I think anything like that, you know, not totally unlike chess, where you've got kind of a, you know, it requires a certain amount of sort of mental ability, right? I mean, it's like you've got to think about, you know, like you're saying, two or three moves ahead, and like you're, you know, trying to set up future shots. You know, you're not really just thinking about the current shot you're taking and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. There's something about games that require that kind of stuff that I'm extra impressed with.
yeah. Well, and then you can, oh, I know I can't make this shot, so I'm going to put the cue ball behind two other balls and leave him a bad shot. And then it just, it's also one of those things I can throw on the TV and watch like a 9 ball tournament on YouTube and work at the same time. I can tune in and see some, it's a good shot or whatever, go back to work and just have it
Mhm.
on like ambient stuff. It's kind of my thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's something I like about it too, because I mean, just being like, you know, a kid that grew up around like music and going to seedy bars for concerts and stuff all these years, there's something about sort of seedy bar culture that I like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Well,
pool kind of comes with that.
speaking of that, this actually comes back around full circle with you and I. In Phoenix, I used to play in 9 ball tournaments. I wasn't anywhere near as good as I am now, but I wanted to just be around that culture and get better and stuff. And so I would go to this pool hall in Mesa. I can't remember what it was called, but um, usually once or twice a week, I'd be shooting pool. And uh, I think it's DJ Solman from the Funk
Yeah,
Junkies
Soul Man from Funk Junkies.
is like a pool guy as well, and I ran into him 2 or 3 times.
Oh, that's
So
fun.
it's just kind of funny that uh, through that connection through pool, I ran into him, and him from
Yeah,
your work with those guys.
yeah. His name's
So
Joe Valiente, and yeah, he's. I mean, he's the coolest dude. He still cruises around as DJ and everything, so you can catch him out and about.
I know
Yeah.
he just opened for 311 down in Mexico.
Oh, did he
Ryan
really? Oh, that's
from
awesome.
Ink Rebellion posted about that the other day.
Well, that's cool.
But
Yeah, no, Joe's an awesome dude, and actually, yeah, we saw him at just randomly. He was DJing a New Year's Eve event in Park City a few years ago, and so we saw him then. It's the last
nice.
time I've talked to him, but I mean, it was good to catch up with that dude. But yeah, no, it's funny, as we have been on this podcast, and so for people that like listen to the oh shoot, Jason DeVore episode with all the Arizona connections and stuff like that with Authority Zero, his band, and then also with Joe from the Funk Junkies and everybody from that. It's funny how small the world is, like how just everything is sort of interlaced and intertwined. And you and I have been together long enough now that a lot of those paths have sort of come full circle, like you're talking
Yeah.
about. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Speaking
kind of fun.
of that Jason DeVore interview, have you seen we're starting to get these emails from Earshot Media with
Yeah.
promo stuff? I
Yeah, we'll
think
have to
that's
start, investigating some of those. Yeah, I think it's a record label, and they are. I don't know. Maybe I ought to look real fast just so we don't
yeah.
besmirch.
I
But I
I
think they're,
think
record launches and things like that.
I think his solo stuff is through this label,
Oh, okay.
if I'm not mistaken. But it looks like there's some pretty cool artists. We might have to
Yeah,
reach
well,
out
and it
to
looks
them
like
and
they
see
have
about
like,
getting them on.
yeah, they have the dude from Fishbone as one of their guys.
Yeah,
I think he's doing kind of a solo thing or doing his own thing now, but like that, some old school reggae stuff, so that'd be pretty fun. Yeah, a bunch
yeah,
of other bands and stuff like that. So yeah, no, it'd be awesome if we could start getting a few more bands on here. It was a lot of fun to visit with Jason, and obviously his situation's unique just in that, I mean, we're so inexplicably connected to that dude over
yeah.
like decades, that it's kind of a funny thing. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's funny
it was
because
crazy talking to him because we knew everyone that he was talking about, and like it was brought up in the show. We've kicked it with him multiple times, but never really
yeah.
got on a friendship basis with
Yeah,
him.
somehow we should be really close friends, but we're just
Yeah,
not. And so it's a weird thing. Yeah, no, it's funny too because like even after we hung up that show, for a little peek behind the curtain, we were talking with Jason just for a brief minute before he jumped off, and it was like, oh yeah, I think we had left off talking about like his acoustic album or something like that, but
yeah,
that was also, I mean, we just didn't get into it, but I mean, that was through the same record label that I was working with. And it was like,
yeah.
I mean, there's just like, I mean, the connections continued well beyond that conversation. And so it's interesting. And then I've been watching, he just, I think, dropped a new video. He dropped a new album, the new Authority Zero album. They just did a little
Yep.
mini tour. And I think they either just got back or are heading out to Europe or something. So there's
Yeah,
a bunch of stuff going on with him right now, which is very cool.
yeah. I'm excited for him. Be cool to see what's coming up.
Yeah, we'll have to circle
Uh,
back and regroup.
so you're right in the middle of getting some college stuff done for football.
Yeah, we're working
Your
on it. So
your
we talked
month
about
is
it a little
crazy.
bit. Yeah, we interviewed a guy a couple weeks ago, Jason Friedman, and so you'll probably hear that episode before you hear this episode. But we were talking about it a little bit during that show because it sounds like he's got a son who's going to be in the college recruiting world one day too. And so, but we're really learning it. I feel bad for our oldest son because we're learning all this at his expense. But by the time our younger son comes around, if he wants to pursue sports in college, hopefully we'll be old pros by then. But yeah, no, it's just a nightmare. And before we jumped on the call, I was kind of breaking down for you what our June is going to be. Mike's got his travel coming up in June as well, but our June schedule is just bonkers. And it's hard because people listening may or may not really know these areas. But so like this weekend, for example, we're going to Vegas. So Vegas is about a 6-hour drive from here, just to give people some context from where we're at. And so we're going to Vegas for a long snapping tournament this weekend. We've got a little bit of a reprieve for a couple of weeks, but then starting May 17th, the weekend of May 17th, we're out of town May 17th for an event. We've got to go to Boise on the 25th of May. Then we get a week off. Then on June 6th, we have the University of Utah Specialist Camp. Then on the 8th, we have the Utah Tech football camp. The 9th, we have Boise State, and it's 9-hour drive from St. George. So we're going to be driving overnight to get to the Boise one. Then we get 2 days off. Then we have the Weber State camp, which is like a best of the West camp. So they bring in a lot of colleges from all over the West. And then we have to drive from Salt Lake here to Bozeman, Montana for the Montana State camp, which is like an overnighter, the 14th, 15th. And that's
Wow.
about 8 hours from here. So it's like every drive we're doing is like an 8-hour drive, and they're all over the damn place. And so, but
sounds
according
like you need to trade in your camper for an RV.
well, my wife was asking about that because we have a little camper trailer, and she was like, "Well, maybe we should just take the camper and just stay in places." But I don't know. I'm like kind of the opinion. I'm not a big guy that loves pulling trailers anyway.
That's
But
what I mean.
but it's like, yeah, so an RV would be a way better way to go. But it's just like by the time you put in gas to do a 9-hour drive, like I could just stay at the hill.
Yeah.
So, so I think it'll be a little easier to deal to just stay at hotels. But I mean, we're looking at every option, right? I mean, we're not like uber wealthy or anything, right? So we got to figure out how to do all this on the cheap and try
Well,
and figure out.
here's a suggestion. I mean, he is 16.
Pay for
He's got a
college,
license. Just let
bag
him
all this
drive on
shit,
his
pay for
own.
school.
You stay home and enjoy your thing and just let him go.
Yeah, it's an option.
Figure it out.
Yeah, no shit. So, but yeah, so anyway, so it's been, chaotic to say the least. And, the kid is already working out 4 days a week, 2 days a week with long snapping coaches and 2 days a week with lineman coaches. So he is just
Wow.
hammered. And, and then the school itself has workouts 5 days a week. So he's working out with those guys in the mornings. So it's just, he's putting in the work. So I really hope he's rewarded with something exciting. I hope he can
Yeah.
find a deal, a school that'll take him, that has the kind of academic stuff he's looking for, and also has the athletic stuff he's looking for. So,
Well, he is. I mean, not to brag, but isn't he a pretty good student?
yeah,
Like,
he's a great student, and so I think that's going to go a long way to helping him. He's a great athlete, also. But he's not one of these dudes that's like, got
bragging
recruited at
about it.
12, and he's like one of these super, mega elite athletes that's already, committed at 9 years old to some huge school. So he's having to work for it a little bit more. And, and education is actually his kind of number one priority, even though athletics is right up there with it. And, so a big part of it is, he could get into a smaller school or a lesser quality school with no trouble.
Yeah.
Like he could probably just walk on somewhere. But the reality is he wants to get a good education too. And I don't think he would sacrifice gameplay for his education. Like he wants to play sports, but he doesn't want to give up a good school. So,
Smart.
but it's hard because, like, from an athletics perspective, everybody's looking for a D1 school, and the FBS schools are like the biggest, baddest ones, but they're already done recruiting his class. They're on to the next generation of kids.
Yeah.
But the FCS schools, a little bit smaller ones, like the state schools, like Boise State, Weber State, Utah State, these kinds of places, still have some opportunities for kids his age, which is good. And so if he could get into a school like that, that'd probably suit him pretty well, and that would work. But when you're thinking about D3 schools and stuff like that, which he's got some D3 offers that have come through, but from an athletic perspective, he doesn't really want to go to a D3 school because that's sort of a big step down. But like I could be screwing this up, but like MIT is D3.
Yeah.
And like, Harvard and Yale and
MIT and Harvard aren't known.
Yeah. They're not
really
known for having
teams.
Amazing football programs.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you could get accepted to a school like that, it might be worth it. Yeah. And so he's kind of, got this delicate balance that he's got to strike, which is, academics is important, athletics is important, and then kind of how do those things, go against each other? Like he's got one school, this Oklahoma State is hounding him or sending him a lot of materials. I don't know if it actually means anything, but they're sending over a lot of stuff. And but they want him as an academic, right? They would be one of these FBS schools. His only chance of playing football there would be to walk on, probably. And
does he know what he wants to do education wise?
He's got an idea. He wants to go into like criminal forensics, like work in the crime lab kind of deal.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
And so I think it'd be a cool deal. And actually, Weber State here is supposedly where the FBI recruits out of. For that job. So if that's what he wants to do, it wouldn't be horrible if he stayed close. And I think he's kind of a family kid. So I don't think he would be too upset if he got to stay near. But
well, it's right next to your house too.
It's really close. And so so that's an option for him. He is taking in his senior year, he's taking a forensics class at the high school. And I think he'll get kind of a taste for it. And then one of his football coaches is a chief of police around here. And so he's going to set him up with some, law enforcement type things, let him do some ride-alongs and things like that. And just like kind of give him a taste for all the law enforcement stuff and see if that's where he wants to be. So he may have a different opinion at the end of the year. But.
Yeah. The forensics side of it sounds really cool. Being a patrol officer, I don't know.
I don't know how bad I'd want to be a cop these days. I mean, it's not, not only is it not particularly popular among the citizenry these days, it's, I just am always a
field to be in.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, on any given day, you're meeting people on the worst day of their lives, and like, even if it's just your first speeding ticket, like, I can't remember who it is that says it, but it's just like, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. So even if it's just a speeding ticket or whatever, if you've never got a ticket, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And so you're never meeting people, like you don't get to save cats out of trees that often. You know what I mean? And so it's like most of the time you're punishing somebody for doing something or you're doing whatever. And it's just, I don't know how bad I'd want that kind of karma in my
Yeah.
life. Like I'm grateful for
I
people who do it because, I believe that we need to have folks, out there when we need them. But, it's certainly not for me.
I have a lot of family that's in law enforcement. My aunt's a 911 dispatcher. My uncle was a sergeant, and my two cousins are patrol officers. And I go to barbecues with a lot of police officers. So I get to hear, the good, the bad, and the ugly about the job. And it's I could see how it would be appealing as you never doing the same thing. It's a different thing every day, but you know, dealing with a combative drunk person every night or, dealing with that kind of stuff. I just, not for
Well, that's
me.
the thing. I think it could be rewarding or like, I think there's opportunities for things to be rewarding, which is, hey, I was there to save the day today.
Yeah.
But I think most of the time it's not that. I think most of the time it's, you're dealing with the problems and you're dealing with the bad things that come up. And it's just, I don't know. For me, karmically, I wouldn't want that kind of drama in my life.
Yeah.
So it just, it doesn't work for
Well,
me.
and then
But I'm
you
grateful
also
there are
see
people cut out
stuff
for it.
that you don't want to, no, most people wouldn't
Yeah.
see or want to see. And whether you think it does or not, that stuff has a lasting effect on you. And,
Yep.
Mentally wise, it's probably,
Yeah, just not for me. I mean, like I say, I'm grateful that people are willing to do that work, and I'm glad that we have those folks when you need them. It's nice to be able to call a cop if you need a cop, but
Yeah.
at the same time, there's plenty
well,
going on
when
with
it's
those
your
guys.
kid,
Yeah,
if he's in a lab somewhere, like processing fingerprints, or
if he's in a lab,
that kind of
I'm not stressing too
Yeah.
bad. But but even at that, like he was talking to somebody that worked in forensics, and it's like I don't know, he's still got dead bodies rolling through there all the time, and you're trying to put together brain fragments and stuff. It's like I don't know, like for me, it's like it's a kind of like I don't know, karmic energy that I'm not looking for. But
if he's going to Weber and FBI and stuff like that, he should get into tech and track down.
Yeah, and that's the thing is
stuff
he's
like
really smart, but before he decided he wanted to do forensics, he had talked about law, like he just wanted to be an attorney or something, and so there could be something around that. I don't know. I think he's still trying to kind of figure it out, but he's
it's hard when
he's
you're that young.
Yeah, well, and he's a lot more academic than I ever was. Like he's a much better student than I ever was, and so I can't totally relate with I guess having those kinds of options available to you. I mean,
Sure.
I didn't choose my career path because it was the simplest, but it was the one that I was already kind of tuned for. And so for me, I had kind of a natural trajectory. Like I didn't have to, learn a lot to start a design agency, but for a guy like him, like he could really depends how bad he wants to push himself, but he could go into medical school or he could go into, law enforcement, whatever he wants to do. There's kind of a gamut there for him. So I think it makes it even more challenging though, if you don't kind of know. My wife knew she wanted to be a teacher and she's a teacher. Like that's what she wanted to do. And she always knew it. And it was really, straightforward for her. But I think for people who have more options, it's like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure what I want to do. So, but it is cool that at the high school level, he has the opportunity to take a, forensics course and some other things like this so he can get exposure to those things. And
is he doing in Washington? They had it was the Running Start program. Is he able to get any college credits in high school here?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the things back to the topic of high school recruiting. This is one of the things, and if anybody's listening to this that can help give us clarity on this idea, I'd be grateful to hear it. So our understanding is, yes, he can take college courses, and so as we were looking at his senior year, the idea was, hey, let's rock through, general math, general English, general whatever, so that basically you knock out almost 2 years of school.
Yeah.
You can kill your first 2 years of generals. But what we believe happens is then you enter college as a junior, which means he's only got 2 years of eligibility as a player. And then he's basically expected to be performing at the level of a junior, right, on the team because he's only got 2 years of eligibility. So if he's not performing at the level of a college junior, he not only will have a shorter football career, but he'll also probably not play because you kind of have to grow into being a college athlete, So a lot of these guys will take a chance on somebody who's younger, knowing that, okay, we have 4 years to get this guy to where we need him, where if you come in and you're halfway done with school already, it's like, well, I don't know, it creates some issues. So now I don't know, maybe if he was to pursue, postgraduate degree and stay in college longer, maybe he gets a little more eligibility or whatever. Like, I'm not totally sure how it works, but we're having a hard time trying to hammer this out because it's, how do we make decisions for the fall semester for him? Because if he's, because there's a version of this where he doesn't get recruited and he just goes to college. And then if he's in the same situation that like me and his mom were, it's like, okay, well, you take student loans and you go to school. Like that's it. I mean, we don't have a ton of money laying around for him or any of that stuff. So it's like, I mean, worst case scenario, you just take a student loan and go to school. Nonetheless, you still get to go to college. You still get to go wherever you want. Just, you're doing it in that way, and there's a million other ways, 100 other routes in, half academic scholarship, half athletic, all academic, all, I mean, there's 100 ways into school.
But. I mean, if he could go in and at least start building credits towards college and do the high school running start thing, even if he doesn't, knock out 2 years of it, just start getting some credits covered that if worst comes to worst, at least that's.
And that's kind of where we, I think, have netted out because at the same time, I mean, he wants to stay academically challenged. He's not trying to just coast his senior year. And so, so he could maybe do like math. He could maybe do English. He could, maybe he knocks out 2 or 3 courses so he doesn't have to take those as a incoming college student. But maybe he doesn't. And I should say too, not every school will accept his credits, right? So he can get college credits, but they may or may not be accepted, depending on where he goes. So, if he goes to a Utah school, it'd be, of course they would accept him. But if he's outside of Utah, then all of a sudden you've got to convince people. And I don't know for sure. So anyway, so we're still, I think, kind of encouraging him to do that. But if it's looking good, and hopefully he'll have, some offers to choose from here in the coming months, if he knows where he's going to school and he's already got kind of stuff hammered out, then he can, take whatever he wants to do. And, so if he wants to take all the college courses, he can take all the college courses, whatever he wants to do. So anyway, so we'll be playing it a little bit by ear, but, yeah.
So, I noticed you released a new print.
Yeah. I just rolled it out this morning. I mean, it's been something that's kind of in the process, all month. I mean, so anybody who's been following my Instagram, which isn't very many of you, by the way, feel free to follow me there. But so I've been doing this thing just as a way to do something artistic this year. I've been putting out a different poster each month in a series I'm calling Breakout. And it's only called Breakout because basically there's a white border around the pages and the illustration sort of extends beyond the border. So that's the Breakout.
Which I think is cool.
So it's kind of a cool idea and they look cool. And, I'm pretty happy with them. In fact, you can kind of see a couple of them behind me here. Eventually I've got it mapped out on this wall behind me that we'll have 12, one for each month. And so we'll have the whole year on the wall back here behind me, which will be pretty cool. But, nice. But right now I only have 3 of them done. You can see the last 2, but you can't see the top one. But anyway, so I've been doing these posters one a month. In April, I did something a little bit different. So April's band is a group called The Warning. We talked about them, I think, on the show before, but they're a group of sisters from Mexico who are all, rock band together, and they're awesome. But so I decided to do a poster for them in April. But the other thing they were doing was a big European tour. They had 19 dates, and they sold out all 19, which was pretty cool for them. I don't think they'd ever done that before. And so they're on the grow. But they did 3 nights, well, technically 4, but 3 nights that I cared about in Spain. And for people who've listened to the show any amount of time, then, I'm a big Spain fan. So I jumped on those 3. And basically the concept was they were playing in Madrid, Barcelona, and Bilbao. And sort of in Spain, those 3 are distinctly culturally different. So you've got sort of proper Spain, which is Madrid. And then you've got the Catalonians in Barcelona, who sort of see themselves as a separate nation. And then you have the Basque country up in Bilbao. And so you have sort of, 3 different countries within a country. And so and there's 3 different girls in the band. So I did a poster of each of the girls with each of the 3 flags for each of those 3 cities, right? So I rolled out a poster from Madrid when that happened, rolled out one for Barcelona when that happened, and rolled out one for Bilbao when that happened. And then because of the sort of 1 poster a month cadence of this breakout thing I'm doing, the poster that is the official drop for the month has all 3 members of the band in 1 poster. And so anyway, so I was able to sort of, multi-purpose those illustrations and create, these three different posters, and then this fourth one that's all four of them together. So that one is actually going to hit the website today, I think, if I have time to get it up, and it'll be available for purchase. Trying to decide what to do with the others, whether I make those available as like a really limited edition, maybe like 20 prints or something available or something of each of those, and then the fourth one. And so anyway, so the warning is the big one for this month. There's still some debate about who the May poster is, so I won't spill that. But for people who love a good cliffhanger, stay tuned to the one post I'll make this month on Instagram, and and you'll be able to see that poster probably. So
Sweet.
anyway, so it's pretty cool. So I'm stoked. I just rolled out that new warning one last night. I have been in contact with their management team and all this stuff to see if anybody's interested in getting sort of an officially sanctioned edition of that poster out. Right now, it's just sort of fan art, so I just want to make it clear there's no like real affiliation between me and the band or anything. So, but it's just kind of a thing that I like to do. I'm a music fan, as people know from listening to the show, and I'm stoked on this band, The Warning. They're doing awesome, and in fact, we're going to see them in Amsterdam in August, so it'll be kind of fun. Our first Warning show will be in Amsterdam, of all places. So,
are you taking the family or just the wife?
it's just going to be me and the wife. So we're doing, just to add on to our wild Roghaar's on tour schedule this summer. In July, near the last week of July, we're going over to Amsterdam and then taking a cruise up to Norway with my wife's family. So they're from Norway, sort of genetically. And so, and her father's getting up there in age and stuff. So we thought it would be a good time to get over there and see Norway with him while he could, travel and do all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so that's the big plan. But as part of it, I mean, my family, the Roghaars, are all from Amsterdam. And so I'm excited to spend a little bit of time in Amsterdam. I've been there for a weekend once, but that's, all the time I've had there. So we're going to go over about 2 or 3 days before the cruise and spend a couple days in Amsterdam. And then after we get back from the cruise, the family's leaving, and me and my wife are going to stay an extra couple days and go to this concert.
Nice.
So it should be fun. So we'll get about a week in Amsterdam, and that'll be fun. And then, none of us have been to Norway before, so that'll be cool. So
my family's from Scotland. Actually, remember when we did the Jimmy Eat World show, and a few of the other shows around that time period? There was my company was called Air Industries. Know what happened there? You there? Hello. Can you hear me?
all right. Well, I don't know.
Are you there?
Oh, did I lose internet? Is that on me?
It says trying to reconnect. Hello.
All right. Well, I guess it's just me for a minute. Looks like I'm reconnected. Let's see if Mike comes back on here in a second. Hey.
Hello.
I don't know.
That is weird.
Yeah, I don't know if my internet bombed or what happened, but you were mid conversation that went away.
Up.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder how the editing process is going to be for this one.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll cut that out or not. Either way, I'll tell the guy. But no, that was weird. Well, and I switched to my other Wi-Fi because I still haven't stopped paying Xfinity, so I have 2 Wi-Fi networks in the house.
There you go.
So I just jumped from one to the other so I could get back on, because I don't know if the other one died or if your end died. Like I don't know what happened. So.
Huh? That's strange.
Anyway,
yeah, our internet's weird here. We actually have the Verizon hotspot that you can take with you, and that's what it's all through. And it's occasionally like my Amazon Fire will drop or my Apple TV will drop, and it's always just one device. And I don't know why, but I can go, the TV won't work, but the computer will, or the iPad won't work, but the computer will. And so I don't know what's up with it, but it could have been me. So, yeah.
Cool.
Anyways, do you want to try and rehab this or just call it?
Yeah, no. Yeah, we can come back in. I don't remember what we were talking about though.
Oh, I was Ayrshire.
Okay. That's right.
My family's from Scotland, and that time frame that we did the Jimmy Eat World show and the Paramore show and a few of the other ones. My company was called Air Industries, and that was because my family's from Ayrshire, Scotland, and so at some point in the next 3 or 4 years, while my parents are still able to, I want to take them to Scotland, and I think that's kind of
Yeah,
in the
no, I think it's
works, just
important to try
because.
and do those kinds of things. After we get through this trip, we need to do one. So we just took our other in-laws, Tia's folks, my wife's folks, to Nashville, or I should say, her mom and her stepdad. We went out to Nashville together. But like her stepdad Frank has been trying to go to Costa Rica for 12 years, 10, maybe more.
Yeah.
And so we would like to try and do that with him. So I will tell you, just from doing this last trip with him, like he's slowed down a lot. I mean, he's about 80,
Hmm.
like I mean, he's in really good health for being 80, but I mean, he's still just, he's 80, and
Yeah.
so we found that even just doing that trip to Nashville, it's hard for him to keep up. And it's like, I don't think we've got 10 years to travel and do
Yeah.
this trip if we're going to go to Costa Rica. If he's anything
Yeah.
like his mother, he could live well into, ripe old age of 100 or something. But but it's going to be a challenge to do, a trip like
Costa
that
Rica.
at that age. So,
Yeah.
so I think it's important, kind of to your point, that we do that with him before he gets too old. My mom is sort of the youngest of the parents, and so we'd like to do something with her too. She doesn't really have anything in mind, though. It's kind of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Her family, the Jacobsons, are sort of all Danish. So, and I'd be stoked to go to Denmark. That's where my favorite singer Mo is from. So if I can go to Denmark and catch a Mo show, I'm down. And if that makes my mom happy too, then that's cool. So I'm up for
Win-win-win.
Denmark, but we'll see what happens. So, but yeah, we'd like to do that too. And I think it's one of those things. We're all getting older, and parents are getting quite a bit older, and there's kind of a window on that kind of travel. And so it's like, if you want to do those sorts of things together, you got to do it before
Yeah.
it gets too late. So
It's weird because my parents are taught yeah, I'm going to Alaska here in the next 3 weeks, and I'm going with my dad, and we're driving, and we go and look at our passports, and they're both expired, so we had to go through this whole process of getting the photo taken, sending it in. You can only mail it in. You can't do it online, which is, I think, antiquated for
it's ridiculous. Yeah, we're in the
whatever.
process of getting our family's passports updated. I just got my new one back. Although it's funny because
Uh-huh.
they sent me, normally when you get one, they send you have to send in your old passport, and then they
Yeah.
like hole punch it or something to like damage your existing passport so you can't use the old one.
And then they send it
Yeah,
back.
they didn't punch my old one. They just sent it back to me, and it's
Weird.
it's perfect. It's just like it was before. So it's kind of
Huh.
funny because all the other ones have come back punched or whatever, but this one came back just perfect. So I'm trying to decide what to do with it because I probably need to get it shredded or something. So it's just
Just
been
punch
sitting on my
it. That
desk for
way you
weeks.
don't get in trouble for having
Yeah.
to.
So, but they sent me my
Uh,
new one too. So I'm set. So my youngest is the last one we got to get one for. And, we'd like to get the family down to Mexico or something. And so we've got to get our passports
yeah.
together. But
Well, it's weird to think that, like, my parents at the time were like, "Well, this is probably our last passport." Like,
yeah,
oh, weird.
yeah,
I
that's a
didn't think
weird
of
thought,
it
right?
that way. Like, seriously,
Yeah.
it's a 10-year thing, but that kind of puts a time limit on when you're
Yeah.
thinking
Well, it's funny because
stuff
you
like
just
that,
don't
and you
think
don't think
about
of
it.
that stuff.
And like I say, with my father-in-law on this last, little spring break trip to Nashville, like, I mean, he got around fine. Like, I don't want to overplay it and make it sound like he was having a hard time or whatever, but like he fell while we were there and slipped down the stairs and landed on his butt and came down on his elbow and just sort of
Yeah,
like cracked his elbow on top of the stairs. Right. And I mean,
yeah.
but all of us were like, my wife cracked the joke. She's like, is it bad that I actually wished it was my kid instead? She's like, because I know my boys will bounce back from this, but we just
He'll
don't know
rebound.
with
Yeah,
Frank, and the way that
yeah,
this house we were in was set up is really tall and really vertical. So it was like,
yeah,
big high ceilings, 3-floor kind of townhouse kind of thing. But the stairways were, really long and steep, so it was like, so I mean, he's lucky all he did was fall on his butt and crack his elbow. He could have rolled down the stairs and killed himself. Like, I mean,
yeah,
but it's like, but when you get to that age and it starts to feel like people are kind of more frail like that, it's like every one of those things can become a thing, right? So in his case, he cracked his elbow out there, and and it was bleeding pretty bad and stuff, but we didn't think too much of it. He got kind of a little, what do they call it when it puffs up, not just swelling, but it's like, I don't know, it's got a medical term when you get kind of like a big pustule or something there. And
yeah.
so anyway, so he just kind of let it go. Apparently over the last couple of weeks, it started getting worse and like not getting better. And so I guess at some point his arm looked like a big Popeye arm because the whole arm was swollen. And he was still like going to
Wow.
work. Like he just works part-time over at Lowe's. And so he's still going to work. He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to work today. And his wife was finally like, no, we can't. Like we got to go get your arm looked at. So they go get it looked at. Dude's got a MRSA infection in his arm
Oh
and all
God.
this stuff because he didn't take care of his arm when he hurt it, you know? So it's like, I mean, now
Well, and
granted, anybody can, yeah, you don't want to dick around with
MRSA's
MRSA.
not easy to come around.
No.
Like get
Well, and
no.
they said, you know, they luckily they caught it and it wasn't in his blood yet, but they were like, but if it was in your blood, like you're done. Like, like
Yeah.
that would have been it, curtains for Frank, you know, and all
Yeah.
it took was a little slip on the stairs, you
That's
know.
crazy.
And so it's funny when you think about it that way, because I mean, he ended up in the hospital for 2 or 3 nights, you know, while they were trying to clean out the infection. And I think they ended up
I had
doing
a
a little
buddy
procedure
that
and stuff.
a guy like younger than me, probably 10, 15 years ago. So he was probably, late 20s or early 20s. And he decided to do this tough mudder competition.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Iron Man, but through crawling through mud pits and stuff like that. And he got MRSA from that, and it almost killed him.
Yeah.
And he was
Well,
in
that's
his
the thing.
20s.
And I mean, the
So,
MRSA isn't necessarily age related, right? I mean, I guess you can kind of pick that up wherever. And I suspect he probably got it at the hospital, but,
yeah.
you know, cause they say that it's kind of rampant in the hospitals, but nonetheless, I mean, he's more susceptible to infection. He's, you know, less able to fight off infection, things like that when he's older. And so even
Right.
though, you know, slipping on the stairs and, you know, the MRSA infection are not necessarily old age related, he was more, you know, likely to have something go wrong because of his age. And so,
Yeah.
so anyway, so yeah, so that just put a little bit of a, you know, kind of like your parents saying about their passports, it's put a little bit
Yeah.
of an extra umph on, okay, well, we better, if Frank wants to go to Costa Rica, let's get to Costa Rica. Let's figure
Let's
it out,
go.
because it's
Yeah.
like, we can't wait until he's 86. Like, you know, and maybe
You
he'll
know
be
that
great, but you just can't roll the dice.
it's so weird to think of that because like we're in the process of shopping for a new home in Oregon. Yeah, my sister lives in Oregon. Her husband's a doctor there, so he's not going anywhere. It's not like they're going to relocate. He's there. He's a partner, and my mom wants to be close to the grandkids. And so I'll jump on Zillow and kind of spend 10, 15 minutes every evening just trying to find properties for them that are affordable and properties that work for what they want to do. And, like before, we always would look for rehabs. We'd look for homes that need a little work, that, like get some equity in it, kind of stuff like that. Like this one here over the time that I've been here, and then the time they've been here a lot longer than me. I've only been here the last couple of years, but they've probably, just in their own work, put 150, 200 grand in equity in the house just by doing work. And now we're not looking for that. We're looking for something that's ready to go, that's one story, that's, they can pull into a garage and get out of the car, not have to deal with snow, and, not a lot of upkeep because, it's a little out of their wheelhouse these days. And it's weird to think of stuff like that. So
Yeah, no, it's wild. And I mean, it just sucks, you know. I mean, like I lost my dad not too long ago, and he was actually the youngest of our parents. I mean, he was, you know, not even that old a guy. And so
yeah,
I think, you know, that kind of added a little bit of pressure around this like Norway trip, right? Because I've been telling my wife and her sister to see if they could put something together and just go on a trip with their dad. You know, I was like, it doesn't even
yeah,
have to be all of us, just you guys should go do something with your dad before he gets too old. And then after my dad passed, it was like, okay, well, like putting off shit with my dad, you know, got to the point where now we can't do anything with it now. And
yeah,
so it's like, so with their dad, he's in good health and everything, but you know, he's 76, I think. And, you know, with, you know, it doesn't take much, you know, a bad cold or something. And in fact, he got had like some kind of like a staph infection or something a couple of years ago, but I mean, it knocked him out. Like, I mean, you know,
yeah,
like, you know, there were some moments where it was like, man, if you'd have gone another day, like you might have been it, you know. And it's
yeah,
like, and just I guess at that age, it's all it takes, you know. So it's like you just don't want to roll the dice on it. And so if you can get to a spot where you can do that, you know, I guess that's the advice or whatever the wisdom here is. Make sure you take advantage and go do it because you know,
yeah.
it's expensive and it's hard to do those things and all that. But I think, you know, it's really important too. So
Yep.
anyhow, all right. Well, that was kind of a downer, but
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
so no. Well, I mean, it's all good. I think it's an important topic, and and we're excited to do this trip with her dad and everything this year. And and if you guys can get out to Ireland, I think, or Scotland, I think it's a great thing to do. And I mean, on the other side of our family, we're all English, Irish, all that kind of stuff too. So we'd like to get over there. I mean, I obviously relate closest to my Dutch heritage, just because of my last name it's a Dutch last name, so that's kind of the one I glom onto. But we're equal parts English and Irish and all that stuff too, so it might be good. That may be what we end up doing with my mom. I actually saw once a brochure for they do kind of like a land cruise across the UK, where but it's in a train. So you have like a hotel room in the train or whatever. You have a place to live in the train, and then you start sort of at the north of the north of the UK and work your way all the way down through Ireland and everything. And but you do all your stops and everything via train instead. And I thought that looked pretty cool. So
I took a train last year from Chelan. It was actually really cool. My sister is down in Corvallis, Oregon, and I didn't want to drive. I don't know why, because it's only 2-3 hours, but I thought it'd be fun to take the train. So I put my backpack on, got on the bus in Chelan, took the bus to the Amtrak station, took the Amtrak to Corvallis, and it dropped me within 15 miles of her house. But the one thing that sucked about it was I had a layover in Spokane, and the layover was like in a real sketchy kind of part of town, and I had 2 laptops on me, and I had like I'm all tense and stuff, thinking that I'm going to get mugged. But I don't think it's the same with what you're kind of talking about as far as in the UK. Like you think if
it's a little bit of a different thing. But who was I talking to? I had a conversation with a guy just the other day that was telling me that he did it was actually a guy out in Nashville. He did a train ride from Nashville to like LA, and you go through like the mountains and stuff of Colorado and all this stuff. And he said it was just amazing. Like he was just like, it was the coolest way to see the country and stuff like that. So we were interested. We were going to do it to go out to Oregon to see my dad one time years ago. And, but like, I don't know, it took like a 10-hour drive and turned it into like a 4-day tour. We're just we just need to get to Oregon.
It adds a bunch to it.
Yeah.
But not having the driving aspect and being able to kind of like, mess around on your laptop and do work and whatever, that was kind of cool. The coming back to Chelan from there, we ended up going up through Seattle and over a different route, and that took me along like the edge of the Puget Sound, which amazing, cool views of the Olympic Mountains and the water and stuff like that. So you definitely see stuff that you wouldn't normally see by doing the train.
Yeah, and I've heard that the route
trying
through Colorado
to get
is
there
very
quick.
Cool. Yeah, it's not the way to hurry, but it's a good way to travel, or like if you want to make a vacation out of it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
cool. All right, man. Well,
all right. Well,
good to
let's call it a show. So thanks so much to everybody who tunes in and continues to listen to this show, supports us through all the things we do. Feel free to follow us on social media and all that stuff, and get involved with the show in any way you see fit. And that's it. So thanks, Mike. And thanks to everybody who tunes into the show this week and every week. And we'll see you guys next time.